Hey guys, it's Inigo. I hope that you're all doing well. Today I want to talk about a bit of a serious topic. The day that I'm posting this is World Mental Health Day. I know that a lot of people in this community, friends of mine, artists, viewers alike, are struggling with mental health issues. And I've never made it a secret that I have and am struggling with those as well. So the way that this video will be structured is first I will be talking a bit about my own experiences. Then I will be talking about ways that I have learned to cope and ways that I know about. And then I will, at the end, talk about some resources that you can use if you're struggling. So I'll put links in the description to timestamps for these parts of the video. With this video, I am not going to be capable of talking about everything regarding mental health. Those would be hundreds of videos if I were to do them, and there's much better resources on them as well. But I just want to talk to you. I'm not going to be reading a script or, I'm just going to be chatting here with you, and I find that what for me already helps is to hear people talk about it and to normalize these feelings and emotions and struggles that I have. So I'm not going to give you my whole life story, that would also be a very long video, but I have been struggling with stuff for quite some time. The first time I went into therapy was when I was 13 years old. I didn't have the easiest childhood, and going through that didn't set me up the best way for the rest of my life. I got myself in a bunch of situations, and I was victim to a couple situations that really made me into who I am right now. I think it started for me when I was getting a lot of anxiety. It started to be very scary to me to go to school, to go out, but especially school. And I would try to come up with all sorts of excuses to not go, and if I was at school, I came up with stuff so I could go home, and that just went on for quite a while. And I was in therapy for this, and back then I got cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a therapy that's meant to they make you aware of the thoughts in your head and how they influence the way that you feel. And it's just like a cycle. Like, you think something and you feel something, and then you think something about what you're feeling, and it just kind of goes on from there. And cognitive behavioral therapy helps with kind of like, you still have the thoughts, but you won't have that whole reaction to it because you learn to recognize your thoughts and those cycles and stuff like that. That's what I started out with when I was in my teens. I found it really hard to take it very seriously back then. I knew that I was struggling, and my anxiety was definitely getting worse and worse, and I started to avoid stuff, because if you're very anxious about doing things, or if you get panicky about things, it's much easier to just avoid them, because then on the short term you at least won't have to deal with that anxiety and that panic and that uncomfortableness. But in the long term I was making it worse for myself, because this avoidance actually increases the anxiety, because you're building it up in your head to be a lot scarier and a lot bigger than it actually is. So back then I found it pretty hard to really take it very seriously, and I eventually stopped going to that specific therapy. And as time went on, and I quit school because I was officially diagnosed with a burnout because the anxiety was getting so bad that I was pretty much physically incapable of going to school. Just the thought of it, gave me really bad panic attacks, and I didn't want to talk about it with my parents either, so I would just go out and I wouldn't go to school. I would just go to the library or the bookstore or anywhere like that, and I just spent the whole day there, and that was the only thing I could manage, and that just really caught up with me. At this age, I was a little older, and I realized that I was going to have to take this seriously. So I went back into therapy, and for a couple of years I've been in group therapy, I've been one-on-one therapy, but I still wasn't really getting to the root of it, and as the years progressed, I developed depression and dissociation. Now, I've made a video about dissociation before. Basically, if you're unaware of what dissociation is, it's a feeling of being disconnected from the world around you or your body, which is often a sign of trauma. Now, as this got worse and worse, I started to look for therapy that was more focused on these issues, like on the depression and on the dissociation, and through there I got officially diagnosed with PTSD. PTSD is post-traumatic stress syndrome, and a lot of people associate it with veterans and people that have served in a war, things like that, and it's definitely very, very, very common amongst people like that. But there are many other people, like civilians, that have PTSD too, and it can be from a single traumatic event, multiple events, or it can be complex PTSD, which is a series of events throughout years, basically. The specific type that I'm officially diagnosed with is PTSD dissociative subtype. So what your brain does when you are stressed for so long, I have had these anxiety issues for so long, and I've been avoiding things which made the anxiety worse, and it made the depression worse because I felt like, naturally I started getting really depressed because I wasn't able to do the things that you want to do when you're young. You have an idea of what you want to do with your life, and I wasn't able to do that. And so after so many years and years of just stress compacting onto each other, your brain kind of starts to shut certain processes off to kind of protect yourself against these levels of stress, which is a cause for dissociation. And trauma can lead, even one traumatic event can lead to dissociation if the stress is high enough. Most people will at least once or twice in their life have dissociative episodes. It can come after a moment of shock. Maybe if you lose a loved one, or you hear something just extremely traumatizing, I guess. It can give you kind of go through this fog. And with this specific type of PTSD that I get that fog, but it's constant for me because I've had stress for so long. So that is kind of what I'm dealing with at the moment in my life. I have my anxiety under control a lot better. I've gone through so much therapy, and I've definitely, even though it was hard for me, and there were often times where I really, didn't want to go in or wasn't taking it as seriously, through those years, I've definitely learned to not avoid stuff anymore. Even though I'm anxious about something, I will still go do it because I realize that it's, only gonna make it worse, and it ultimately doesn't really matter if I'm anxious at home or if I'm anxious outside. And on top of that, it's the depression, which has gotten quite bad in recent years. And I've talked about this before, but I also suffer from something called PMDD, which is like PMS but way worse, especially on the mental side. And it's basically, 2 out of 4 weeks in the month I get extremely depressed and suicidal, and it's just not something, there's no cure or treatment for it. And if you already have pre-existing disorders or diagnoses, then it's just gonna increase those as well. And then the dissociation from the PTSD. Now, PTSD itself is very hard to explain in full because it's such a complex thing, and so many people suffer from it in so many different ways. But for me personally, I do have flashbacks, like out of nowhere somewhere sometimes, or if I get triggered by something someone says, or some person, or I see or hear or smell something, and I get back into that memory of that traumatic event. And for me, it also happens a lot in dreams. I'm like reliving the events like in my dreams and such things, and just in general, it's hard for me personally to I don't have like social anxiety necessarily, but social contacts can be difficult for me because of what I went through. So on some days it just gets overwhelming for me, and I of course try to do like my coping things and my skills that I've learned through therapy throughout the years. Sometimes it's just overwhelming, and I can't be motivated to do anything at all. It's I just feel like it's just weighing me down so much, and I'm dealing with so many things that are just like compounded onto each other that it just seems completely hopeless. And I do tend to get out of those moments eventually, and that's what I tell myself, like, I'll be okay, it's not always gonna be like this. And that goes for everything, really. Nothing lasts forever, not the bad stuff either, So there are some ways that I have learned how to cope. Self-care is like the basics. Basically, despite how you're feeling, try as good as you can to take care of yourself. Make sure you are properly hydrated, properly fed, you are eating healthy foods, you're eating enough, you're eating not too much. Limit consumption of alcohol and drugs especially. Make sure you have proper hygiene. Make sure you live in a clean and safe space. Just get the basics out of the way, because if those are lacking, then it's going to be really, really hard to work on the other stuff that you might be dealing with, right? For my anxiety, I have a lot of tools in my toolkit, and most of them came through therapy and talking with therapists, and them, going over what I can best do. Stuff that I've discovered on my own includes ASMR, of course, but even sometimes just simple distraction. Just I always have my phone with me, so I'll watch something or listen to something, or even chat with people and reach out to friends and explain that I'm somewhere and I'm really nervous. And just having that communication with someone already helps, in my experience anyway. For my dissociation, the best thing I can do is grounding exercises. I try to reconnect with everything around, because your brain wants to shut that off, but you kind of go against that by focusing on what you can touch, focusing on what you can see, focusing on what you can hear, smell, taste, and really be mindful. Mindfulness is a really big one for dissociation. And then for the depression, I find the best thing that really works is simply to talk to people about it. I guess it's mostly that not doing that is like kind of closing myself off that definitely makes it worse. And if anything, like connecting with people that care and people that are willing to listen, I found that that's always the thing that kind of gets me out of it, you know? And it's not a cure, obviously. There's no like instant cure for depression, as much as I would wish there is for so many people around the world, but I find that for me that's really the thing that kind of pulls me through it. And for me, this can be friends, this can be partner, this can be family. I know that a lot of people feel guilty about talking, with their friends, to kind of like burden them in some way, and most of the time I would say that that's not the case. If someone is truly and really your friend, they're not gonna mind wanting to help you. But I find the problem arises is if you lean on your friends constantly, especially if it's like a small group of people or maybe just one. And obviously your friends, I'm assuming, aren't psychiatrists or psychologists, and even if they are, it's probably not the best idea to, combine like a close friendship with that type of stuff anyway. But they, they're not professionals, they don't know exactly how to deal with it, they don't know exactly what can help you. And I find that over time, people that, I've done this myself too, and I've had people lean on me too, where they lean on you in lieu of seeking the help that they need, and you might recognize yourself in that too. I'm not saying like you can't ever talk to your friends, because obviously it does help a lot and it's good too, and you're not just friends for the fun stuff, but I do really want to emphasize how important it is that if you are struggling with any sort of mental thing, it's so important to seek actual help. And I know a lot of people that are kind of like quietly or silently dealing with anxiety, with depression, with dissociative disorders, with trauma, with OCD. There's so many different things that so many people have to live with, and a lot of them do not seek the help that they need, and that is really sad to me, because I truly believe that everything can be improved upon. Almost every life situation can be made better in some way, even if you can't completely cure it or solve it, right? And a lot of people, like, if they break a bone or if they have some sort of physical disease, they would very quickly go to the doctors, but they're a lot more hesitant with going to the doctor for anything mental. But I would really say that it is equally important to get proper help with anything mental that you might be suffering with, because it has such an influence on every moment of your life, of your day. You're always in your mind, right? And there's just so much that you can do, that there's so many possibilities. No matter how bad you're feeling, there's something that can help. And that's what I want to go over in the last portion of the video. Firstly, if you're watching this and if you are feeling suicidal, if you're feeling actively suicidal, if you're thinking very deeply about it, I'm going to put links in the description, and I'll put them on the screen as well. and you can go there, and these are people that you can contact, that you can talk to. These are crisis numbers, anything like that. And if you feel like you need that right now, please, 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 please go seek that out. Okay guys, this is another resource that I wanted to talk about called BetterHelp. Now, I've already spoken about how important it is if you're dealing with anything to talk to people, and I know that a lot of people don't necessarily have people they can talk to, or they feel like they don't have people to talk to, or the people that they have in their lives, there might be fear that they might not be understanding, anything like that. And in a lot of places I realize that it's not as easy to get therapy because it is very, very expensive if there's no insurance. Depending on where you are in the world, it can be very hard to find these types of places. And also for a lot of people, it can just be extremely hard to go out and to have to physically go places. And while I do recommend that you do go out and you don't let yourself be stopped by any fear because of that, I know that sometimes it can be hard, to take that first step, especially because therapy can be very confronting, right? So BetterHelp is a counseling website where you can get affordable counseling. Like I said, you don't have to leave your house. It's all online, and you get paired up with a licensed therapist after you make your account. And they let you fill in a questionnaire, and an algorithm will link you up with a therapist. You can always change, and you can request if they're male or female, and they actually do take into account if you want to get linked to people that are LGBTQ friendly or of a certain religion. They have like a very large selection of therapists, so they can really find someone that fits your need, basically. And when you have an account, when you're linked up or paired up with a therapist, you can have as many sessions as you want, allow whatever your therapist's schedule allows as well. And you also have contact through text or email whenever you want, basically. So this is kind of like a pretty low bar way to get, therapy. And they are quite affordable. I think the plans start around $35 per week, which is extremely affordable. So I can definitely recommend this service if you're not able to get therapy wherever you're located or with your budget. So I really, 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 really hope that I could be of any help in any way. I know I was a little bit rambly, and it can be a little bit difficult for me to get my thoughts straight on topics such as these, even though I have a lot to say about it. I want to end this video with saying thank you so much for watching. I truly hope that you're doing well. And if you're not, I am hoping that you're able to take whatever steps necessary for you to feel better. I can't say that I know what you're going through. Nobody can truly feel what's going on in someone else's head, but I do understand having to go through a struggle, and I understand, struggling with mental health. And just remember, there are always ways out. There's always something you can try. There's always a way to make your life just a little bit better. There's so many people that care, so many people that are very much willing to help you. I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you again very soon. Stay safe.